Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'll be getting some bonsai trees ready for our KW Bonsai Fall Show. My hibiscus is looking beautiful, but it won't be in the show. It's just a pre-bonsai. It's been speculated that bonsai started off as potted herbs and they were just kept alive in pots and taken around the trade routes. So for this video we're going to start with a rosemary bonsai. This is my rosemary bonsai. It was started just this year in midsummer. I had a bunch of these plastic trays. They're just a plastic tray with feet on the bottom, no drainage holes in the bottom. And I bought them from Chris Henry, the bonsai guy. And I think I bought 6 of them, and I bought a larger size, and I think there's a half dozen of those too. So I used them for the Scouts Canada demo. Everyone got one of these plastic trays. And the person in charge, Winona, she bought all these little rosemary herbs from one of the nurseries. And I brought the bonsai soil and some moss, and the kids collected rocks and pieces of driftwood and stuff from the nearby garden. And we put together little landscapes, and we pruned our trees up, and we planted all the cuttings that we pruned off to make a little miniature forest. And so this is it today. It was covered in moss, but all the birds have been kicking it off. So today I'm going to dress up this landscape, prune the rosemary down, and clean it all up and get it ready for the bonsai show. I was going to drill drainage holes in the bottom of the tray, but then I thought, well, maybe that reservoir of water that sits in the bottom of the tray will help keep the plant hydrated on the hot summer days. And it seems to have worked really well. The tree's grown really lush and healthy, and it's never dried out, even on the hottest summer days. Because the soil stays moist even on the hottest summer day, the moss grows really well, but it also has grown some liverwort on the surface here. And you can see it right here. It's these big kind of plates. So I'll have to pick that off, so I'll just grab the tweezers. And this liverwort, it just spreads by spores that can be in water or in the air. And I've had this liverwort even on my bonsai trees that do have drainage holes in the bottom. So it's something that you just gotta monitor. And if you see it developing, just pick it off. I think it grows mainly when it's hot out. And I've had very little problem with liverwort over the years. This year I seem to have more than normal. But yeah, it's easy to take care of. You just pick it off. Rosemary is what I would call a practical bonsai. When you prune it, you can use all the clippings in your cooking. The liverwort is all removed, so it's time to prune up the main tree. Before I can start pruning up the main tree, I have to imagine what I want it to look like, what kind of style I want. A rosemary you can prune into almost any style. I could prune this into a triangular form like a coniferous tree. I could grow it into an oval type shape to look like a deciduous tree. Any style is possible with these rosemary bushes. I like to style the trees to kind of complement their natural growing form. And in this case, the rosemary kind of grows upright, but it does also get some horizontal branches off those upright branches. So I think I'll go online and I'll check out some styling of, wild rosemary bushes in nature. They can get huge trunks on them and grow quite tall. So I'm going to get some styling ideas, and then I'll come back and see what kind of style would suit this tree. I had a look online, and most of the rosemary just grows in a bush, so kind of a rounded bush, sometimes in a regular shape. But if you look up rosemary bonsai, you'll see every style imaginable. You'll see cascades, semi-cascades, forests. You'll see some with trunks this thickness. They can grow into a fantastic bonsai. So I think I'm going to keep this a rounded tree-like shape. It'll be close to its natural form, and it'll look more like a deciduous tree. Many of the branches on this tree are very long and straight, without any change of direction. So I'll be pruning all these back, trying to get a more compact form. Alright, so here I go. I'll start with this lowest branch. I pruned it off short here before, and then it grew 2 upright branches from the tip. So I want to keep them in the light. I don't want them too short, but I do want to reduce them back. So I'll take them back to about here and here. Pruning just above some outward facing leaves. So hopefully the new branches that grow in will be more horizontal. Here's a good horizontal branch here that I can just shorten. And again, I'll use some directional pruning. The leaves on a rosemary branch alternate, so you can see these 2 branches here are growing vertical, and then the next set is growing horizontal. The next set grows vertical, and the next set horizontal. So if I want my new branches to grow up or down, I would prune back just ahead of those leaves. If I want my new branches to go left and right or horizontal, I would prune just in front of those. So to here, that'll get me 2 branches spreading out horizontal. Or if I prune back to here, I'll get a branch growing more vertical and maybe one pointing downwards. I'll want my overall height of the tree to be about here. It doesn't have a very thick trunk yet, so I've got to keep it fairly short. Otherwise it'll look like a tall, skinny tree. So I'll come in and I'm going to prune the main trunk right back to here. Right there. Smells beautiful. I'll save all my cuttings. So there's the height of my main branch structure. So I'll come in now and prune all the other branches down. And I'm always looking for an outward facing leaf, and I prune just above that. Rosemaries do need a cool period in winter. They need a period of dormancy. So I'm going to put them in the basement for the winter, keeping them above freezing but very cool, and they should do fine. I've had them in the plant room before and they don't do very well. They just get too warm in the winter and they kind of start getting weak and die. So it's best to keep them quite cool in winter. So they're what I would call a subtropical plant. So I'll continue to prune on the right side of the tree here and here. That's got the main tree roughed into shape. I need to prune the cuttings now, and they're quite tall and skinny without much branching or shape, so I'll just be rough pruning them for now to encourage them to develop more branches and ramification. So I'll take this one off here, and this one here, and this one back to here, like that. These rosemary cuttings will be really good with some roasted potatoes. I'm out front having a look at the group now. I think that rosemary cutting next to the main tree needs to be shortened just a bit, and maybe the one beside it also a bit too. And I need to prune up the main tree, getting rid of some of the branches to clean up that structure a bit. Right now it does look like a bush, so I've got to clean out some of that structure so you can see more of a tree-like form. A bit to here, and this one back a bit also to there. That looks better. To get that tree-like form on the main tree, I will need to remove some of the leaves that are in close to the trunk, so I'll just pull them off with my hand, just cleaning up the foliage a bit. I may have to prune some with the scissors, like this one. So all the branches that are growing close to the base of other branches can be cleaned out. Some right here that need to be pruned away. That helps clean up the branch structure so you can see the trunk and where the branches emerge from the trunk. There. I'll also be cleaning out branches that are growing in towards the center of the tree. So trying to keep all the branches fanning outwards. And that includes buds that are on the inside of branches. I'll be removing those. Like there. There's a branch growing in towards the center of the tree here. I'll remove that. Like that. There's an old pruning stub I'll remove there. Shorten this one a bit more. So I'm just looking at the structure of the tree. Trying to get the basic structure simplified so it's, you know, nice and orderly, so it's not all a jumbled mess. There's a branch growing off of the inside here, this one right here, that needs to be removed, so I'll come in and remove that one right back to there. That cleans up the inside of the tree a lot. I'll remove a lot of these leaves that are growing towards the inside here. As you get up into the finer ramification, it's okay for branches to kind of cross in the canopy, but you want your basic structure nice and clean, because that's the woody part of the tree that you'll see, is that inner structure. The canopy will just be sort of a mass of green foliage, so it's not so important having it so orderly. A lot of shoots down here at the base of a lot of these branches that can be pruned away. I've got two branches at the base here that are kind of opposite each other. I've got this one and this one. It doesn't look too bad, but I should remove one of them. So I'm going to try and determine which one to remove, and I'll just, you know, put my finger in front of it and try and visualize what it looks without that branch and decide which one to keep. This branch here on the left hand side is on the inside of the curve of the trunk, so I think that's the one I'll remove. So here I go. Just like that. I'll also need to clean up some of these branches at the bases of the cuttings to make them look a little more tree-like, so they don't look like bushes. The reason I'm putting this in the bonsai show is that it's a simple planting that anyone can do. You can buy these little rosemary trees from the nursery, plant them in a pot, and you can prune away at them. And as your rosemary plant gets older, it'll start to look more and more tree-like. And if your trees don't make it, you can always replace it with another one and keep trying until you kind of get your techniques and your watering schedule on the right track. I've got the rosemary forest all cleaned up now. It just needs some finishing touches, like some sand around the trees. Susan from Idaho sent me this soil scoop, and at first glance it doesn't seem like much, but the advantage is it's flexible. You can scrape the bottom of your soil bins really easily to get that last bit of soil out the bottom. And when you're pouring your soil, you can pour it like this, or you can squeeze it together and pour just a little bit. So it allows you really good control when you're pouring out your soil. So thanks, Susan. This is fantastic. I love it. The soil scoop is made by Munchkin. You can go to munchkin.com and order your own. So I'm going to try pouring the sand out now using the soil scoop. I'm using white sand just to provide lots of contrast. I don't know how it'll look, but guess we'll find out. So here I go. Let's get it all in here and see how it looks. Now, I may have to touch up this landscape before the show. This is just kind of, you know, getting it semi-ready. There's always some weeding and some touching up. I'm sure this rosemary will grow a bit before the show also. So just kind of getting a layer of sand down, trying to cover up any bonsai soil and kind of integrate the moss with the sand so it looks very natural. Okay, now it's time to water the planting and get all that sand settled in. Okay, here I go with the water. And it'll run off. You just gotta keep putting the water on till it all kind of settles in and levels out. go around the back here. Almost looks like snow. Maybe this will be my winter scene. And there I go. Here's a look at the final planting. I'll spin it around so you can see it from all angles. Back. Side. And back to the front. I'm sure this white sand will get some algae or some moss growing on it before the show, so it might look quite natural. At the moment it kind of looks like snow, but yeah, this is a really easy to grow planting. You can get these rosemary bushes anywhere, and whether you're really serious, you want to grow this into a fantastic tree, or if you just want to put it on your kitchen windowsill and pick off the leaves for using in your cooking, either way, this is a great tree to do that with. It's time now for today's update. Today's update is my Ficus root over board project, where I'm trying to get those nice rocket finned type buttress roots. This tree is planted over top of a wooden board, and the wooden board I have now floating in a tray of water. So the board sucks up the water from this pool, and it keeps the board moist at all times so the roots can grow across the surface of the board. The tree is growing really well. It's nice and healthy. If this technique works out well, I may expand upon it in future. I may do more of my ficuses growing over boards and float them in trays of water. It's almost self-watering, so you don't really have to worry about checking them for water every day. You just don't want to let this pool of water, the water level, drop too low. So yeah, I'm going to keep playing around with this technique, and if it works well, if I get roots growing across the surface of the board, I'll be really pleased, and it may be a good technique for growing ficus trees. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.